Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the FloBro Show. The claims made by
Just stop being so sensitive.
Thank you for tuning into the FloBro Show, presented by FLOrigins. Welcome to the FloBro Show. Today, we got solo. We are having just us FloBros here in the studio. What we're doing is a Debbie Does Florida podcast. What do Florida people do during a hurricane? Well, I can tell you what we're doing. We are filming a podcast. To my left, you got natural born filmmaker Blake. To my other left, you got Aaron, your Florida guy. Me, I'm JD with FLOrigins. We're talking Debbie Does Florida. Here we go. Yeah, it took me some maneuvering to get here. I tried to take a bunch of different roads to get here, and I went one way. The river was flowing over the road. I could still see the yellow line, so I tried to drive through that. I was fine. I get to the next stop sign, and then I look to the right where I got to go, and there's probably 2 feet of water on that road. So I'm like, guess I'm not going that way. Turned around, went another way, and then that road was flooded, so I had to make a left and had to zigzag my way out here. But once I got to the main road, the highway was fine, all that. But just to get, because I live right by the river, the river wraps around the back of my neighborhood. Yeah. And even though my neighborhood's, it was built in like 2001, my house was. So my neighborhood's built higher to like elevation or whatever. So I'm not even in a flood zone, which is really weird. But all the roads that lead to my neighborhood are older, and the river flows right over the road in some places. And the one video I took of the river flowing over the road, that little walking bridge that's there is normally like 10 feet above the water, and now the river's going over the road. And I'm like, okay, so I guess we got some rain last night from what it seems like.
Yeah, it got crazy. Everyone was probably up last night, getting all the tornado warnings and flood warnings on their phone. I was trying to sleep, but I couldn't because I kept getting these things going.
Well, it's funny. Yeah. I pulled 2 parts of my security camera footage on the front of my house. One was from midnight. It's just drizzling. And then right around 1:30 in the morning, like a band came through, and it was just whipping. I mean, we could play it on the screen here, and it's such a huge difference between one shot and the other because it does motion sensing or whatever. So at midnight, it must have picked up something moving or whatever. Then like next cut was like 1:30, and it's just like blowing like crazy, and it's such a difference in the video. It was kind of funny. Well, I had the same problem with the. It's good that they got the warnings and they go off. They're loud. Yeah, they are. Which is good, which is great, especially if you live in an area. And it's nice that we have that technology to kind of give you a heads up. You'd imagine, 100 years ago, people were like, oh, where am I supposed to go in Florida? We don't have no basements. Yeah. You just got to go hide underneath something, a bathtub, which we were taught. And I remember as a kid, you get in the bathtub, put a mattress over you in a bathtub. Or if you have stairs, you can hide underneath the stairs. Say you have a little cubby hole underneath the stairs. But other than that, there's no basements in Florida. So what are you supposed to do? So it's great that we do have that warning system. But yeah, we did get some in the middle of the night. And we have a 2-story home, and our south windows facing the way the storm was coming, and when those squalls would come in, it was torrential hitting the house. Oh yeah, and it was just constantly all night, which is just good. I like it. It's hard to sleep. Yeah.
My mom was texting me yesterday, like in the middle of the day, like, "Oh, everything good out there?" And I was like, "It's barely even rained. Like nothing's happening." Yeah. It wasn't until last night that it was like, "Oh, yeah." Our whole yard is flooded. Like there's a river coming in my yard. Yeah, right now. It's insane.
Mumu was on her little raft floating around.
Yeah, Mumu was like, "Oh no!"
Well, for this one in particular, because it's right offshore, closer you got to the coast, like the Anna Maria Island beaches areas got the worst. Like I know down in Fort Myers they had the beach flood. I know St. Armands, Sarasota got some flooding. I know the island, Anna Maria Island, all the way up Clearwater. I know Tarpon Springs got a bunch of flooding. Yeah. So and I did see the stats. Like I think it was like a foot of rain in Bradenton, Sarasota area in a 24-hour period, which broke a record. Yeah. So that's we went from extreme drought with like the ground turning almost into concrete to just like a solid month of rain and followed up by hurricane. So yeah, the roads are flooding all over the place. My dad tried to go to a doctor's appointment this morning and couldn't make it because he's all flooded in. And luckily I got the one road that they built that's a newer road that
there's like 5 different ways to get back to the one road that leads to my house, and like 4 out of those 5 are flooded. But like my wife coming home last night got stopped by a flood in one area, and then she remembered this new road that we got comes around, goes over the bridge, over the highway. She was able to get home.
Yeah.
But today when I left, I didn't think about it, and I just went my normal way, and I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, the roads are a river right now. I couldn't get here, and it's just crazy. Like you forget about how simple. Like the simple thing is like, I could just go that way and get to a store, or go that way or whatever. But when a storm comes, you're like, oh yeah, I guess I can't go the normal way, or like things change or whatever. And there was dead cars in the water that people tried to drive through.
My mom sent me a map of all the cars that were like, they had like there's like a aerial view of like the county, and it had all these like emergent things like cars that were just like dead, like on the road and stuff.
Yeah,
and like roads that were closed.
Well,
I just drove around them.
Yeah, well, you got a truck.
I do have a truck, yeah.
My Cadillac sits pretty freaking low, so I have to be more cautious. But like my indicator, when I'm driving and I see water, like if you can see the lines on the road, that's usually an okay indicator. Or if you're driving down a road that has a curb, with the sidewalk on it, if the water is up to the curb or higher, obviously I'm not going to drive through it. But some people don't think about that kind of stuff. They just start creeping in real slow. Next thing you know, they're hydrolocked and they got their car's totaled basically. And
I've never got stuck in my truck. My truck sits about I don't know 18 inches off. Well, let's see. So they're talking about 18 to 20 inches off the ground. I've been through about 1.5 feet, about 20 inches of water in it.
Yeah,
and it just slowly.
Well, your
goes
seat
through
and your engine are probably a solid 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah. Well, 39-inch tires. So I mean, as long as you go in water where it's not sucking it up into like the starter, and the underside, it's a good I would say about 20 inches. Yeah. I got about 20-inch clearance. Now that's not talking about like rocks or mud. We're just talking about water.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I used to have a Silverado 2500 that had a 6-inch lift on it. And that thing was nice. I mean, I didn't have to question really anything. If I could see a Honda Accord down in the water and the water's up to like the middle of the door, I'm like, well, I know I'm good because I got my truck, but I don't have that truck anymore. And before my Cadillac, I had a Mercedes E-Class that I got this bug and I wanted to fix it all up, and I lowered it like 2.5 inches, and friggin' that thing I couldn't even like drive through a puddle on the sidewalk without worrying. And the intake like goes down into like wraps around the front grill and all that. So I had maybe like a 6-inch limit on that car, but
dang. Yeah, I've always wanted if I ever got like a Wrangler, like a Jeep, I would definitely do like a snorkel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, dude, you can drive it all the way up, like so your engine's breathing.
You know what the funny thing is too, is you see all these people driving around with like their Land Cruisers and Jeeps with their snorkels. I'm like, have any
ever used it?
What is the percentage of people who have ever actually used a snorkel that have them on their vehicles?
Well, it's surprising to me how many people buy trucks that aren't 4-wheel drive. They're like, oh, it's a little cheaper. I'll never need it. And then I'm like, but you live in Florida. Like, at least once a year you'll need it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's until you need it, you don't realize you're going to, whatever.
Well, also what I think is funny is when they buy like a regular pickup truck and they lift it and jack it up and it's still a two-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of silly.
Yeah. Holy cow.
I do find that ironic.
Yeah.
It's like buying an above ground pool is what I would relate that to.
Yeah.
Just half commitment to kind of, I wanted the look, but I didn't really have the money. But hey, look, fake it till you make it, I guess.
Hey, we used to have a really big above ground pool. So,
And all you got to do is drive around. You can just take a quick glance underneath their vehicle and tell if it's a 4-wheel drive vehicle.
Well, on like the F-150s, I think that's like the 2-wheel drives don't have the hooks in the front bumper and the 4-wheel drives do. So like one of my neighbors taught me that. He's like, if you ever see a lifted Ford, just look for the tow hooks in the bumper and you'll know if it's 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive. And I was like, that's good.
Let's address this Carolina squat thing here that the youngins are doing.
Yeah.
Did it originate from, did it originate from Carolinas? Because we see a lot of people, I just seen one the other, it was like a Tahoe. It was like going down the road, looked like a dog dragging its had worms or something.
Like this?
Is it that white one?
It was like
just
this.
The back was down.
Yeah, just the squatting in the back.
Is that white one that drives around that has the wheels sticking all the way up?
I don't know what color it was. I've seen a few of them, but it's always like somebody like under 30.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is,
it's like the little jits driving them. It's like, oh, this will make me stand out, but then your headlights are pointing straight up in the air and you're hanging onto the steering wheel. I'm not being a hater. I just think it's
Well,
silly.
that's the one thing.
It's not practical.
You can't see over your hood.
That's what I was just about to say. When I had my truck, I was actually on a forum because my truck was lifted and I had aftermarket headlights that were, they were black instead of chrome or whatever. But I was trying to figure out how to adjust them or whatever. So I went on the Chevy forum and I saw somebody in there that had a Chevy Tahoe and said, "Hey, I got a 6-inch squat on the back and a 6-inch lift on the front, whatever. And I can't get my headlights to shine on the road. What do I do?" And one guy's like, "Put a lift kit on the back of your truck too, and you'll be good to go." Whatever. It's like,
and it's always the younger crowd that does this modification to it. But then they always get made fun of. Yet they're still doing it. I mean, you don't see it as much as you did a few years ago. Around here, you see a handful of trucks.
It's the same thing with those little Hondas when they had the cambered wheels that were like at a 45-degree angle.
Oh yeah.
And then they got the tires stretched all the way. You got like this much tread, but then the tires fitting onto like a 10-inch rim.
The tires rubbing against the fender well too.
And it's like that would benefit you in no way, shape, or form if you were racing because you're only getting a bicycle tread with amount of your tire touching the road. And I'm like, unless you're going around corners so hard that your car leans onto the full tread. Yeah, I just never understood that whole thing either. But I don't know. Like I guess we're getting to that age where we see young people trends and we're like, that's stupid. But then like when we were young, like I had the little Honda Civic with all the neon lights and all that stuff. Well, yeah,
I mean, you see the trucks with all the underglow. And at first I was like, that's so stupid. But I'm like, you know what? If I had like a jacked up 250, I probably would put underglow lights on it.
I know.
It's dumb,
me,
but it's like...
I mean, it's eye-catching, but to me, it's kind of like walking around with those shoes with the lights on.
Yeah, dude.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going off-road.
Right, I was going to say, unless, Yeah,
because you know they're not going off-road. They got a bunch of
they're pavement princess.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
That's why I put emergency the white and orange in my truck. Yeah, and it came in handy today because I just drove around roadblocks. They had the roads blocked and the cops were there, and I had my lights on, and they just let me go. Yeah, there's he's funny. Important. He's doing something.
I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but when I used to have my Mercedes, I had a police car PA system in my car.
Oh yeah,
it had the horn underneath the hood. It had all the siren sounds. Whoop, it had the actual PA system. That
you pull people over?
No.
Yeah, I know you didn't pull people over, but did you like do it and then people like?
I would say stuff at stoplights sometimes. Say stuff. And the last car that they're looking at is a gray Mercedes. Yeah. So like I would say stuff over the PA at a stop sign, like just something about the way they're parked or driving or something like that, and they're looking at every white truck or Tahoe or something around them, and I'm sitting there in my gray Mercedes, like like they're not thinking it's me.
Yeah. What's this? Ross Creations has it. I don't know if you've seen it in his videos. Ross Creations has a PA in his Mercedes van that they use as their like production van. They'll park it, and that's where the cameras are and stuff. And they have the PA system, so they've used it in videos where they'll like talk to people.
Yeah.
Doesn't he have like that slammed out ice cream truck or something too?
No, he's got a little Dodge Caravan that he turned into a Mercedes.
He put a Mercedes logo.
Doesn't he have something with hydraulics with like those old Dayton's on it? That's the van. Okay, that thing's pretty cool. Yeah, I seen a video of it. Like that reminds me of Big Worm's ice cream truck from Friday. I was like, that thing's awesome.
he like CNC machine that Mercedes logo that's like 18 inches, and it's like then he's got these little wire wheels and hydraulics. Yeah, it's got like purple crushed velvet like interior.
Funny story. My wife didn't know he had that, and she was driving down 70. He must have been coming home from Cole's house or something, and she was driving behind him or in front of him, and looked back and was just like. Literally sent me a video. Didn't even know it was Ross, and like sent me the video. And was like, Blake, look at this freaking guy. He has a stupid Mercedes. And I was like, that's Charles. I was like, that's Ross's van. She was like, what? And I was like, here's the videos. And then I was just. Yeah.
So when he comes on the show, we got to get him to bring that van here.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
So if you're watching this, I want that van here.
Yeah. Let's bring the van. I
want to go for a ride in that van.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Dude.
That'd be fun.
That'd be so cool.
Actually, didn't they do like an Uber thing? Where they use it like as an Uber drive, like I think Cole was driving it.
Oh, that's funny.
And they were Ubering people from the airport on a rainy day, and I think he had it low, and every time he got to a puddle, he would jump it up and drive it. I think I remember that. I think that was something he did in one of his videos.
Dude, that's
still
still
fun to have.
When I was growing up, when I was in high school, I was into like the lowrider stuff.
Yeah, I still am.
I love them. I would love to get like an old Impala. It doesn't matter what it is, like an old Monte Carlo with hydraulics in it. Like that's what I'm gonna get. That's how you're gonna know.
Well, I had that 86.
I love those things.
I had an 86 Buick Regal 2-door. That I fully like restored and ran out of money because the plan was to get the wire wheels and do the hydraulics and all that lowrider stuff. Because I grew up, I've always been like if you click on like pages I'm following on my Instagram. you'll see a real glimpse at who I am. Some of the conspiracy stuff and the
Let's go.
And I follow like 8 lowrider pages, and people are like, "What in the world?" Like this ginger white guy, and it's just kind of funny. But I'm my Cadillac, the same thing. I mean, it's front wheel drive, so I wouldn't do hydraulics, but I really want to do air ride with the wire wheels, and haters are gonna hate. But
I had a cousin-in-law who had one of the new Jeeps a couple years ago. He had a new Jeep that had like air ride suspension. Like you could lower it and raise it, like maybe like I want to say like 2 inches, 4 inches. Oh, and another friend that I work with, his truck. He has the same truck I do, but it's like a Ram 1500, but it also has that too. So he can, it can ride as high as mine. Like I have a leveling kit on mine, so his is the same height at the highest. But then if he gets to a parking garage and it's like 6'6" is like the limit, he can lower it, whoop, and he can fit in almost any parking garage because he can lower the truck. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. It's already built into the freaking new vehicles, which I thought was
well. At my age, it'd be pretty cool because that Cadillac's so low. Sometimes I have a hard time getting out of it. So like, rather than parking and lowering it to the ground, I'd rather park and jack it up like a foot so I can actually stand up and
out steps or like a slide.
My truck doesn't fit in parking garages, which is the bad thing when you go to like downtown Sarasota. You gotta
that thing would not
wide.
That thing would not.
We have to take our smaller vehicle when we go traveling. The truck I got is just for riding around, like Sunday stroll. Just it gets 8 miles to the gallon.
It looks like a parade truck.
It is a parade truck. Yeah.
Throw beads out the back. Hey,
everybody out there listening, you could throw up a photo of it when we get to when you edit this. But it's a 1988 F350. It's a gasoline, so it's got a 351 Windsor. And there's no air conditioning in it, and it came from a fire department on Outer Banks, North Carolina. So it was only a volunteer fire department, a small island, so it rarely got used. But it did have the Jaws of Life apparatus mounted in the bed of it, so they didn't use it on all the calls. So it sat in a garage for the longest time. So when it was an 88, they made it a civilian vehicle in like 2016, and it only had 18,000 miles on it. So they put 18,000 miles on this truck from 1988 to 2016. I'm the third owner of it, and it still only has 60,000 miles on it. Now, it has a lot of engine miles on it just because, not miles, but hours, because, when fire department goes to a spot, they usually got the lights running. It's just sitting there idling. That truck's fun to ride around in. I enjoy it.
Well, it's like my old Cadillac. I bought that thing from the original owner, and it had 80,000 miles on it when I bought it. It's a 1994 Cadillac DeVille. And like, I remember I found it on Facebook. The transmission went out on my Mercedes, and they wanted like 10 grand just for the parts, basically, to fix it. That didn't even include the labor or the program, because you got to program the VIN number to it. So once I got the price for it, I probably also shouldn't say this on camera, but Carvana will buy a car without test driving it. So like, we had a Ford, we blew the engine on a little Ford Escape, and
they pick them up.
Yeah, they pick them up on a trailer. So then the funny thing is, I was gonna be a little more honest, to be like for real, and the website was like, does this car have any mechanical issues? And I clicked yes, and that was it.
It didn't ask what?
It didn't ask for a description. So I'm like, I tried to be honest. You gave me, yes, it does have mechanical problems, and then they gave me a quote for the car that was like only $2,000 less than Blue Book, and I'm like, you didn't give me a place to elaborate, so I'm going to go ahead and take your offer. Yeah. And then they bought the Ford from us, and then about 6 months, maybe a year later, the transmission went out in my Mercedes, and I'm like, well, they bought the Ford. I'm not going to sell this to like a private party with this transmission problem. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to try again with Carvana, and maybe I shouldn't say Carvana. Maybe it wasn't Carvana, but one of them type of car buying websites. But they took both of them. So I was like, you know what? I couldn't do anything myself on that car because everything had to be programmed to a VIN. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm buying an old American car. So I just went on Facebook Marketplace and just started searching like Buicks and trying to relive the glory days of my 86 Regal. That was my favorite car I ever had. And so I came across this Cadillac like probably 45 minutes north of St. Pete. I think it was a pretty far drive. And it looked perfect in the pictures. And I was like, you know what? I messaged the guy and I was like, if this thing doesn't look like what it looks like in the pictures, please be honest with me, because I'm driving up there with the intention of buying it. Like, please be honest. And he goes, if I'm being honest with you, he's like, it probably looks better in person than it does in the pictures. I took him with my camera, my phone on my camera on my phone. He's like, and I don't have a very good phone. He goes, so it actually looks a little bit better. So I got there and I was like before I even drove it, I was like, and the price was so low, I was like ready to buy it without even driving it. But I was like, I'm gonna take it for a spin, and I drove it, and I was like, holy cow! Like, I couldn't believe the deal I got on that thing. Like, it's got the leather seats, everything worked. Like, man.
Well, that's why I bought my truck, because it was something that I can work on. I had a truck very similar to yours, a 2013 Ram 1500, and
you had real dual exhaust. I have fake.
I had real dual exhaust. Yeah, it would rumble. It was a good truck. I had a lot of good memories in that. I bought it brand new in 13 and got rid of it in 2020, somewhere around there, 2019. But I mean, I had took that thing off road, and I had to cut the carpet out of it because I had got mud inside of it. I literally had that thing buried.
That's a good time.
A lot of silly stuff I did in that truck. But anyways, I bought the older Ford just because I can work on it, and it still had that older Ford has a distributor cap. It's one of the first few years that it was electronic fuel injected, but the computer is, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to work on for the most part. And it does have dual exhaust, but it was reduced down to single exhaust because it was too loud.
No way.
So the guy before me, so when they sold it from the fire department to make a civilian vehicle, a younger kid bought it, and he put like 20-inch rims on it and, and put dual exhaust on it. And you couldn't even hold a conversation inside the cab because it's a classic. So it's very simple and plain. Mm-hmm. So the guy bought it restored it, kind of took the jit out of it, lifted it up, put the bigger tires on it, take the dual exhaust, and so it's got dual exhaust, but it just goes to one muffler and one exhaust pipe. Huh. But yeah, it's a pretty simple basic truck, and that's what drawn me to an older vehicle. Also, is like, you know what? I mean, when the goes down, you better be ready. Oh yeah, and you need to have something you can somewhat fix and rely on.
Yeah, and the conspiracy theory side of me is like the government can't just push a button and shut it down.
Electronic.
It's my bug out vehicle.
Yeah, there's stuff you can get. EMP Shield. Yeah. I think it's EMP Shield, the company. Shout out EMP Shield if you want to sponsor this podcast. They literally, you can get them for your house. Yeah, you can get them for your vehicles. Like, I think I'm gonna get a couple. Yeah. They're only like $250 for the vehicle ones. And it helps against lightning strikes and actual EMP. Yeah. It has like a 3-cycle or 4-cycle, however an EMP works. There's like different pulses at different times. It's not just like a lightning strike where it's like boom and your power's done. It's like an EMP is like different waves of whatever it does. And so this protects against all of the waves. But it only will work once, obviously. So if it gets struck by lightning, you have to replace it. But they'll replace it for free. I was like, what?
What's funny is when I was probably, I want to say 13 years old, I was with my buddy Brad. We were coming from Mayaca, headed back into town where they're bringing me back to my house. And we were on 675 out there, and lightning struck the car we were in.
No way.
Yeah, it was an old, like an early 90s box Chevy Caprice, like one of them old Chevy Caprices or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember we're sitting in the car, we're driving along. All of a sudden, it looked like a bright, like white orange light. Like all the windows looked like they were like glowing white.
Whoa.
And then his dad was like, I think we just got struck by lightning. But it was just an old, like maybe carbureted car. I mean, it was early 90s, late 80s. So it might have been still carbureted. But like, it was like, we just got struck by lightning. And then he just kept driving.
Yeah.
And it was like, and then I had a 91 Buick that got struck by lightning, and it fried all the computers. Yeah. So it's kind of like, that was the difference between like just a few years, like between computerized cars and like just old cable and carburetor engines or whatever. It was like, took a direct lightning hit and kept rolling down the road.
Two things. One, me and Rachel on one of our road trips, we were in like North Carolina, it doesn't matter where we were. We were driving on I-75, and we literally saw a lightning strike. It was 4 cars in front of us in the middle of the road. It was like boom, and then there was a hole in the road. We're like, whoa. So a lot of the freaking potholes in the road are from freaking lightning strikes. In Florida. So it's like you see little potholes in the road, it's lightning.
Or like that one video that was going around with lightning strikes the mailbox, the door flips open. You see that one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
that one's pretty funny.
That's funny. But then the other thing is Rachel's Jeep Grand Cherokee during Ian. She had electrical issues her alarm started going off, and we're like, what the heck? And I'd go out and like try to her trunk opened in the middle of the hurricane, her lights were like flashing, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like trying to turn it off. So we had to go during the hurricane, went outside and had to disconnect the battery to the car, when we sent it in to Jeep and they were like assessing what was wrong with it, they said it got struck by lightning, but lightning never struck. So that's kind of weird. We think it like water got into the hood somehow because the wind was just going sideways at it.
Yeah, like the BCM or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a headache. We'll never take our Jeep back to Jeep to get it fixed because they had it for over 6 months, and it was just the main computer module. But they had to go through all these steps, and then it took too long, and they had terrible communication. Doesn't matter. Long story short, lightning sucks.
Yeah, I've been out on a boat. You're very exposed when you're out on a boat in a storm, and you're trying to outrun it, and you can kind of feel the charge in the air. Kind of before a lightning strike comes, especially if you got like a boat that's got like an aluminum tower, like you're just a lightning rod at that point.
Yeah, you feel like the static in the air or whatever, and you're like, oh boy.
I've had a couple close calls out in the boat, and just trying to, and the funny thing is you're kind of screwed either way because you're either out in the middle of the boat or you're trying to rush to this island and hide in the mangroves. And I've actually had to. I've been caught in it, and I would get out of the boat, and we would kind of like hide underneath the boat, or we would go leave the boat anchored and wade to the shoreline and just kind of go sit in the mangroves away from the boat because the boat is kind of just it's out in the middle.
Right. Oh yeah.
And we've had that. I've had that happen many times out on the boat. Even when I was a kid, we'd run around a little aluminum John boat, and that's just a conductor. Yeah. So we're like we got to get out of this thing like. We're not going to be able to beat the storm back to the boat ramp, so we got to figure out a way to not die in the process. Right. So it's like throw the anchor out, get up on the shore, hide in the mangroves. You're just hiding down like this, just letting it pass. That's all you can do. Yeah. But if you're offshore or something, you don't have that. You don't have that luxury.
Or you could be like
almost safer to jump in the water.
That's what I'm saying. You're better off just jumping in the water, tying a rope to you, and just kind of letting the boat just drift while you're you don't want to be in that thing.
Yeah, or you could be like Ryan with was it Florida Fat Plants or something like that went out on his little boat yesterday exploring when the water was all swelled up. Yeah, he posted a video where he's like going up like Wares Creek, like all the way around by like the DeSoto Mall and the sheriff department and all that stuff. He's out there exploring. I think he said like the water's normally like 6 inches deep or something, and it's like it's up there. Wow. Like he went underneath some overpasses, and it's like a little tiny tunnel versus like what it usually is, and it's. I saw some pretty good. I was obviously at home bored yesterday based on the amount of videos I put out, but I had a lot of people sending me their hurricane content, and I saw some pretty interesting, crazy, cool. Some people might think it's nuts, but to me, it's like that's what we do, kind of videos. And
if you had a trampoline, you jump on the trampoline in the storm. Like that's what you do at a hurricane. Yeah. You swim in the pool. It's like you go outside. You friggin' just ride around, run around until your parents yell at you. You just before cell phones. Yeah. Before cell phones, you don't give a crap. You just go play with your friends.
Yeah, there was a time before cell phones.
Yeah, there was.
There was once a time.
We used to ride. We used to ride our bikes around and go play in the ditches and then get ringworm.
You know what I used to have to do before cell phones. So when I was a kid, I had to check in every once in a while with my mom, like call and be like, "Hey, I'm over here. I'm over there, whatever." Yep. And the mobile home park we lived in had like this hotel on the property. There's payphones up there or whatever. So if I'd be out riding around, she'd give me a handful of change. Yeah. But what I learned was, and a lot of people figured this out, I'm not like saying that I came up with some revelation, but what I learned was you can make a collect call. And when it comes time to record your name, and for those of you that remember collect calls, but it gives you time. It's like record your name at the beep or whatever. Yeah. And I would read the phone number of the payphone as quickly as I could. And then send the collect call to my parents. And then they'd call. And then it would call, and my mom would decline the call and just call me back on the payphone number, and it didn't cost any money.
Yeah. That's amazing. I remember the baseball field that we grew up playing t-ball and stuff that had a payphone. Yeah. That was wild.
Do you want to win one of my handmade Florida flags? I'm JD, founder and owner of FLOrigins. Check out FLOrigins.com for all of our art apparel and accessories. For every $3 you spend is equal to 1 entry to winning one of our handmade Florida flags. Why are you still here? Go to FLOrigins.com.
Going back to having fun during hurricanes growing up, like in the other podcast when I was talking to Jesse about the family I grew up with, like the 9 kids, like when it was storming, like a lot of times now, like people are like, stay inside, don't get struck by lightning. Like when it was raining, if I wasn't at their house, they were knocking on my door and be like, "There's Blake home, let's play." And so we would play in the ditches, and we had a ditch that was like 3 feet deep normally, like a drainage ditch that ran like the whole length of the road. And they had a bridge next to it. And so when it rained and it got high enough, it was probably like 5 feet deep, like where you stood is probably like up here on your chest. And we would jump off the bridge into the water. And then we would take floats. I remember my brother and their brothers, like we just all got together, all the kids in the neighborhood. We'd get floaties and we would just float down the ditch while it's raining. It's so fun.
Well, you see all like the kayaking videos and stuff from like Bayshore up in Tampa.
Yes.
There's always people kayaking on that road. And
we can kayak at the farm right now, dude. Yeah. It's so flooded. We just go in the field and kayak probably.
Get chewed up by fire ants.
Yes.
Get those little floating,
Yeah,
packs.
bro. That's
people,
sketch.
That's one thing people don't know about. They come to Florida. Not only number one, the fire ants in general, but like when there's flooding, they will cluster together and they'll float like little fire ant islands all around. They don't sink. I've had those land on me before. Oh my God. You talk about getting lit up.
That's bad.
Do you guys remember when, storm would come through and you were a child and you go running around, you would see like a walking catfish?
Oh, yeah.
Remember those?
Dude, I just saved a bunch of bluegill on the farm a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
They were in the middle of the road just flapping around. And I was like, oh, crap. And I got a bucket. I threw them in the bucket and threw them back in the lake. But I was like, how did they even get here?
But it seems like you've seen the walking catfish more frequently during the rise of water, in ditches in your neighborhood.
It was funny when I used to work at Best Buy back in the day in the car stereo shop in the back of the store.
Yeah.
And we had the garage doors open. It just stopped raining. It was a pretty heavy rain, so the parking lot was kind of flooded. And the guy Trace that I worked with, him and I were looking at something that was like splat, 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 splat going across the parking lot. We're like, what the heck's that? And it was one of them walking catfish. He goes out there. I think I have a picture of it. I'll see if I could find it and post it or whatever. But he just picks it up and he's like, it's a freaking catfish in the parking lot at Best Buy. Like, and it's just the funny things you see. Like, and we were talking about like alligators. Like, before a hurricane comes, like they open the dam near us and they relieve some of the pressure and they let it run down the river. But like these alligators that are just kind of hanging out in the river that live there year round, it's been a while since that river flooded. So, you got some alligators that are probably 3-4 years old that hadn't experienced it. So it's like they're, they don't have Weather Channel. They don't have the news. So it's kind of like when you're an alligator, you're just kind of hanging out doing your thing. All next thing you know, you're 10 feet higher than you normally are. And you get washed out into the Manatee River and you're like, what the heck? And you end up meeting all these new alligators out there at the end of the river. Like, how did you get here? How did I get here? Like, it's just funny when you think about nature and they don't know any different.
There we go.
We have a live weather alert going on our phone right now. We
weren't joking when we said we were filming during the hurricane, guys.
We're actually in the tornado watch. Okay.
Tornado watch.
That's fine. We're on the second floor. That's safe from a tornado, right? No.
Well, now that we have to go down the downstairs bathroom, right?
Underneath the stairs.
Or underneath the stairs, yeah.
I think we're supposed to hide under our desk or put a book on our head or something, or is that for bombs?
That tornado drills back in the day? Like that little desk was going to save you?
Yeah.
Actually, I think back in the day, it was either under the desk or they would like try to get you to like the cafeteria, the library,
or inside of a door frame. Yeah. Or no, that's earthquakes. Yeah. Earthquakes is the door frame, I think.
Yeah, we never had that.
I'm getting all my safety stuff mixed up. Tornado comes, I'm going to be standing in a door frame and then
holding the house up.
Earthquake, I'm sitting in a bathtub. At least I remember this stuff. I may not know which one goes with what, but I do remember the stuff I was taught in some order.
While we're on the weather situation, I wanted to tell a story. I was probably 12, 13 years old, and my father would drop me and my buddy John off over. We would drop us off and go fishing, wade fishing in Terracea and stuff. And one time we were fishing off of the 19 bridge over in Terracea. We were using chicken bones to catch blue crabs, and we had some bait bucket full of shrimp, just trying to catch whatever, whatever. And storm came through. We were under the bridge fishing, not like bums, but just trying to stay out of the sun or whatever. Well, a storm came through and a water spout came through as we were fishing. And luckily we were there when the water spout came through. We were able to get up underneath the bridge because we were getting pelted by sand because it got all the sand underneath the bridge and stuff. We lost all our fishing gear.
Holy cow.
It all got washed away. And it came through the bridge. We got up underneath there, way up underneath there where you can kind of hide. And man, it was like getting sandblasted. It was scary. Like that was like, we thought we were going to die. Like it lasted for a minute and a half, but it seemed like forever. Well, dude, and it was just one of those situations that you don't forget, and then like 10 minutes later, my dad shows up like yeah, I kind of thought you guys weren't going to be here when I got here. Like, yeah, we knew exactly what to do. Luckily, we stayed underneath the bridge because we were out in the open. We would have got swept away.
Yeah, my first experience with a tornado, it was a Florida tornado. It's not like anything like the real ones they get in like in the Midwest and all that. Like I don't know how. It's funny because people are like talk about how I don't know how you live in Florida with hurricanes. Like I don't know how people live where they have real tornadoes, but like. When I was a kid, it probably wasn't even on an F scale at all. It was probably just like a Florida little thing, whirlwind at best. But we were living in a mobile home park, and I mean, it's a classic story. Like living in a trailer park, man, this tornado came through,
whipping shit. But flying around.
It was right after the movie Twister came out.
Oh yeah.
So we went and saw this movie Twister, and it was kind of like back when like there wasn't like no one really thought about what movies to bring kids to or not or whatever, and like
Jaws.
So like we went and saw the movie Twister, and then like less than a month later, this tornado hits the trailer park, and I'm like, I hear the howling wind, I hear debris flying everywhere. I look out the window. Everything's flying sideways. And I remember screaming to my mom, like, Mom, it's happening. The tornado's coming. And I just got over my fear of fire from the Backdraft movie that I was terrified of for most of my childhood. And then Twister comes along, and now I got this new fear of tornadoes. And then now this tornado is coming at the house, and it did some damage. I mean, it blew over like an aluminum awning at the apartment building nearby. It wasn't anything major, but the noise and the visible, like looking out the window, seeing the lightning striking and stuff swirling around, it was one of them core memory kind of things. Like it was a terrifying experience.
So at my parents' house over in north of the river in Palmetto, they still live there. They got really big, mature pine trees. Some of the pine trees, it takes like 3 people just to wrap your arms around it. Like they're big, 100 years old. So anyways, there was one that was probably already 100 years old on the edge of the property, and it got struck by lightning. Split the tree right down the center. Yeah. You could see it. Like all the way down, charred it, caught it on fire. Whoa. Luckily, it didn't fall over because there was the neighbor's house. We had wound up getting it cut down because it just died. But man, and I remember it happening. Having lightning strike within that close of you, the bang and the light because obviously lightning strike and
makes
then
the
you
hair
got the
on your
thunder.
arm stand up.
Man, it was intense. And then the boom that it created from hitting the tree. And it caught the tree on fire because it was a pine tree. And the pine tree had to be 60, 80 feet in the air. Yeah. It was huge. And it was one of the mature ones on the property. And man, it just split that thing almost all the way down. Probably about 3/4 of the way down, you could see the lightning. Wow. And you could see a hole in the ground next to the trunk.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, me and some neighborhood friends, again, we were in their garage, and we got knocked to the ground. Lightning struck. It was like we're playing outside in a storm. Lightning starts striking. So we're like, we should probably go in the garage. We go in the garage. We're just hanging out, talking. All of a sudden, it was like light, boom, and we all fell down. Like we literally we all fell on the ground that were standing up, and then like it knocked our knees out. It's like if someone kicks you in the back of the leg. That's what happened. Like it knocked our knees out. We fell on the ground, and then we stood up. We're like, what the F was that? Like, dude, the lightning struck so close to their garage that it the shock waves just took our legs out. Wow. It was crazy.
So I seen a video not too long ago. Now, this is the tip for anybody. When there's lightning, don't stand underneath a tree. No. There was people, I think it was up in Tampa, there was like 3 or 4 people stood underneath a tree, and it hit the tree, and they all just fell over.
Yeah,
I think
saw that,
one or two may have died. I don't know. But I've also seen other situations to where when people get struck by lightning, if they live, they get up and they just run.
Yeah. Yes.
Like it's fight or flight. It's either you either cardiac die and you can't get up, or if you can get up, it's like just an automatic response in your body to flee, and they just get up and run.
Yeah.
In any direction.
Yeah, they fell and then they jumped up and ran inside. I was like, what the heck? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I kind of want to backtrack a little bit, but can we pull up that weather alert that just came through while we're recording? Yeah. Because we were just talking about the dam, them opening up the dam, and then that's the warning that came through, right? They were talking about
they're releasing the water.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny that as we're talking about the dam opening up, that was the notification that came through on the phone, correct?
Yeah, the first one that came through was this one. So when I left my house to come here, I literally took a left on the road that the Manatee Dam is on, and this popped up. Emergency alert, Manatee County, Manatee Dam doing strategic release to cause dangerous swift moving water and flooding. Leave area now. Shelters available. High water vehicles being staged in area, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, crap, that's nuts. And that's why there's a bunch of roadblocks on the road because they didn't want people driving down the wrong road and getting swept away.
Here you are
because Floridians love driving around during and after a storm.
We do.
We love it.
The craziest thing was after Hurricane Ian, we were staying at my wife's grandma's house in town because we didn't want to stay in our house because it's a manufactured home. And so driving from that house back out to the farm was like the craziest thing ever. There's like no one on the road. There's branches, power lines down, trees down. No one's on the road. All the lights are hanging and blinking. I was like, dude, this is like a movie scene right now. It was wild.
I went down Jacaranda down in Venice or Venice, whatever that is down there, Englewood. I don't know. But I had to go down to Jacaranda a couple of days after the storm for work. And the whole road, it was weird because the wind was blowing the same direction the whole time. So like when you're driving, when you're headed west or whatever direction towards the water on Jacaranda, I think it's weird because the road curves and it might be south. But anyway, when you're headed towards like 41 area, all the trees were leaning. So when you're on the road, you almost felt like you're on a road that's like on a hill. Yeah. So like as I'm driving down the road, I felt like I wanted to lean, like I felt like I had to lean to balance, and it was like it was such a visible. Like it was such a weird optical illusion that like I felt like I was in a van that was like driving on the side of a hill or something. It was so odd.
I have to bring up the tornado story. We weren't in Florida, but me and my wife were driving, and we think to this day we think we were in a tornado. We were on the highway driving, and we literally the wind started blowing, the rain started blowing. We couldn't see anything. All the cars on the road went off the road or stayed under underpass. So we're going like 25 miles an hour on the highway. We're like, we need to get off the road. We need to get off the road. We look over and the highway signs that say, what town you're in or whatever was literally bent over. I was like, what? And then like the trees were sideways and I was like, this is insane.
Wow.
It was so wild. But yeah, it's really weird when you're driving and the trees are sideways.
Yeah.
You're like, it's
very unnatural.
Yeah. It's very strange.
I seen earlier before you guys came that down there in Casey Key, I think that road that runs down Casey Key, Minnesota, whatever, like the water was washing over the pavements, and that has a prone area to kind of have the pavement washed down because you're literally like 20 yards from the beach when you're on the road,
right?
And I don't know. I just want.
Well, I saw Fort Myers
crazy down there,
the same part of Fort Myers that got devastated by Ian. I saw that was underwater again.
Yep,
man.
It's like these repeat. I don't want to call them repeat offenders because that sounds bad, but like the repeat victims of these storms, it's kind of like you sort of lose motivation to almost like rebuild at a certain point. It's like you rebuild and then a couple of years later the same thing happens and then the same thing happens.
What do you think?
It's like the resilience in these people is like, wow.
How do you think like the Calusa Indians and the people like 1,000 years ago who were living in Florida, all the indigenous peoples who were living in Florida, how do you think they dealt with this?
Oh my goodness.
Like, because they're probably like, they don't know it's a hurricane.
Yeah.
There's like, it's a storm, and all of a sudden everything just starts getting whipped away, and you're like, this is.
And they're in like
huts. It's like 8 to 12 hours of just wind and
like
how did they do that?
That's crazy. Like that's ultimate resilience of people.
I know.
Like having no warning. Obviously, generations go by and you teach each other how to handle this, but you didn't have structure to stay out of it. Like, what did you do? You couldn't go underground.
No.
Like, what did they do?
They didn't have
insane.
concrete structures.
Yeah.
It's like.
And they didn't have 10 sandbags.
Dude.
Yeah.
They didn't even have 10 sandbags.
That would have saved him.
Yeah. I mean, you can just imagine, like, Dude, I don't know. That's nuts. Just thinking about what they had to endure.
I heard there's like what you do during a hurricane is you tie yourself to a tree or something. It's like, dude, do people tie themselves to a tree so they didn't blow away?
Well, the funny thing is, like, I guess this leads into a pretty good topic of like the panic buying.
Oh yeah,
dude! Yeah. Like I left here. So it was a Saturday. We were here doing the podcast with Matt the welder, and on the way home, I was just gonna swing by the gas station, fill up my tank. Didn't think anything of it. I forgot, there's at the time tropical storm kind of looming and starting to hit us or whatever. And so I stopped at the gas station. All the pumps are empty already. They had the pump shut off. I'm like, man. So then I drive home. And then yesterday I just went to Publix because I was going to grill some hot dogs and I went to get some buns, kind of also forgetting that I was just bored because it was raining and nobody's working.
Yeah.
And so, I go there, the bread aisle's all picked over. The water's all gone.
Yeah.
The meat's gone. But then the canned food aisle was completely stocked.
Which is silly because meat needs to be refrigerated. If your power goes out, the canned goods are going to be better than
That's what I'm saying. It's
goods.
like, let's buy a bunch of perishables and stock up. Let's hoard perishables as much as we can.
Yeah.
But one person made a comment on one of my videos that actually made me think. They were like, well, that's for the hurricane party. They're buying a bunch of steaks and stuff. And I'm like, all right. I was maybe that's the case. And if that's the case, cool. But I'm like, if people are actually buying this particular stuff to try to prepare for a storm, but then the canned food aisle completely, like, not one can of soup was missing. Like, it was like no one thought to buy non-perishables or high shelf life items.
I wonder if part of that is because a lot more people have solar now. So I wonder if their houses are backed up on solar.
Maybe, but I mean,
but you have to have battery. You can't just have solar, because then if the power goes out and there's no sun, it's not charging. So you have to have batteries being charged.
Yeah, the solar will charge this. Say you got like a Tesla pack on the side of your house, it'll charge it, but your house can only run off of that for so long.
Right. But if the sun's not out, if the sun's not out, it does nothing.
But it's just funny to me, the things people do, like when a storm's coming, you see like the logic just goes out the window.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, and then they go on social media for their tips, and it's like unbelievable some of the stuff that people come up with. Like, one of the things I noticed, not just with this storm, but like when I drive, because before the storm comes, I drive around, check, talk to the neighbors and just kind of see what everybody's up to and see who's boarding up, who's not, and see if anybody needs help. Kind of go through the whole, do a lap around the neighborhood, see what's going on. And one thing I noticed that's funny is, like, an hour or two before the storm comes, people will just park their cars differently in the driveway.
Yes.
They'll do diagonal stuff and like all these weird. You'll see ones in the yard instead of on the driveway, and one's like diagonally across in front of the garage. I'm like, what's the tactic with that? Like, what?
My wife parked.
Like, my car will be safer if I'm at a 45-degree angle instead of my normal backed into the driveway thing.
We do it because of the trees, so we try to park not under a tree.
Well, that makes sense.
Branches.
You're on a lot of property.
Yeah, but if there's no trees, you're just parking all weird. It's like, what are you doing?
I noticed I was watching cars, like one was up in the yard and one was like sideways, and even
the water.
Like, even across the street from the studio in the driveway over there, there's a car parked diagonally in the driveway, and it's like partially in the grass, and I'm like, what? I don't know. Like, it's just some of the stuff that you see. And then same thing, like we joked about the 10 sandbags. It's kind of like, like,
what am I supposed to do with 10 sandbags?
Yeah.
Like, great.
And the funny thing is, people will buy these sandbags thinking that they're going to build a dam to keep flooding out of the house. What they don't realize is those sandbags are made for crashing waves.
Right.
It keeps the devastation of the impact from hitting your house.
It'll still seep
but
through.
When you stack those bags together, you got holes this big it's like, so as water rises, even if you got more than 10 sandbags, you're not going to stop water from getting in your house.
Right.
It's
you're
a Band-Aid over a bullet hole.
Yeah.
It kind of helps, but not really.
It's just panic.
So the stuff that you see people do because they think that's what you're supposed to do, especially growing up here, watching what the natives did, because this town was mostly native Floridians growing up. It wasn't a whole lot of transplants here. So in the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, if we've had just this wave of all these people moving here, and seeing just the wild stuff
they haven't lived
that they hear on social media that they try. And it's like, and you watch it happening and you just want to tell them, but then you're like, you know what? What's the point?
It's like, well, telling them is getting a stone to bleed. They're not going to think any other way than what they believe that they got to do to protect themselves, which, I mean, I get that, but they do tend to overreact. What we used to do, and you can still do it, is just fill your bathtub full of water.
Yeah. Right.
There's your fresh water. But most people don't clean their bathtubs enough, so like, I don't know if I want to fill my bathtub full of water.
Well, you can just boil it.
You do it so you can flush your toilets and stuff like that.
Yeah, we fill the bathtub up. I got a burner on my propane grill, so I'm like, that's just my backup water. I could boil it on the propane grill. I don't need power. I don't need anything, and I already got the water in the tub, so it's kind of like,
and the native Floridians who've been in the state for generations. You've done certain things over the years through hurricanes that there's no reason to panic. Now, the one last year, that one was like a little scary. And then Charlie, I remember Charlie coming up through the state.
Charlie was crazy.
Was a little scary.
I did some work helping out like with Red Cross and stuff. We went out to Arcadia and down into Port Charlotte. Holy cow, the devastation I saw after that storm.
Yeah, we did too.
I get a lot of doing all the hurricane videos and stuff on my social media. I get a lot of people in the comments that are like, "Oh, you're insensitive," like you'd make jokes out of it and all that stuff. And it's like, first of all, I make comedy videos, and like the videos I make, it's a business to me. Like I make money doing the videos I make. So if I'm making a product to sell, am I going to make one product that's going to sell to 10 sensitive people that are going to get offended by a joke? Or am I going to make a product that's going to sell to, I think I'm over 8 million total views with my hurricane videos. So like if I'm gonna pander to these like cancel offended people, it's just like my heart goes out to everyone who lost anything, anybody in their lives, like, you know, deaths from hurricanes. You get people losing houses. Like obviously,
definitely.
My genuine beliefs and my genuine feelings, or my heart goes out to these people. And I've volunteered with Red Cross, and I've done, you know, cleanup after storms, and I've come across, you know, people who have died in the storms during this cleanup. We were out in Arcadia, and we were cleaning up an area, and there was a person found that would lost her life. And obviously then the police and everything came or whatever, but being that close to somebody who lost their lives in a storm, you know, that's nothing to joke about. And and that's not my intention with the videos I make. But you get all these people that want a virtue signal, and they get in there and they want to like feel important or feel special, or they want to get likes on their comment because they're like, you know, this is insensitive, this is funny, and then they'll get 10 likes, and then they'll go to bed that night feeling like I did my part today. It's like, well, you did your part by sitting there disliking my video, but I'm actually out there trying to help people after a storm. So it's like, even though I make videos joking about it, I make like, look at my videos. They're the kind of content that you scroll through when you're sitting on a toilet. Like I don't make like Emmy award winning, you know, programming. I make comedy videos about Florida. So I make what sells. And it's like, you know, and then the same thing with the alligator thing is like a real Floridian wouldn't act that way. I'm like, no kidding, but what do you think people are going to watch? Like, you know, it's like, so it's like I'm making something, and it's like, you almost get to the point where you feel like you have to put that disclaimer at the beginning, like the individuals in this video the opinions expressed in this video may not represent the individual, whatever. And it's like, you feel like you almost got to get to that point, but I'm like, I'm not giving into all that sensitivity stuff. It's like, we live in a world where you can't make jokes anymore.
No, if comedy dies, our culture's over.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't make light of something, like that's where people can escape to. It's comedians and stand up, and it's like comedy and entertainment. It's like if that dies, if that gets canceled, then it's like we're screwed as a society.
Oh yeah.
There's
like,
way too many there's way too many sensitive people. You know, just over the past 10 years, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody wants to be heard.
Just stop being so sensitive.
Oh, Love Sponge used to say it best: the pussification of America.
Yeah.
And he was saying this 20 years ago before all these got down here. It's still the same. It's still relevant to this day. There's even more sensitive people now than there was 10, 20 years ago because social media has made everybody like, I don't like that, so let me verbal diarrhea my opinions and thoughts about it.
The funny thing is too, is like, I guess we're a little bit off topic with the hurricanes, but while we're on this topic, you know, you get like,
go for it.
You get the full right wing people that are like, oh, the cancel culture, the sensitive people, the liberals, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, they're a bunch of canceled, sensitive people. But then the second a business will come out and like support gay pride or anything like that, then they're like, boycott Target, boycott Starbucks. And I'm like, you're just as bad with your boycotts as these people are with getting offended at jokes. And it's like, it's, you know, you're allowed to have your beliefs and opinions. If you want to boycott a business, boycott a business. If you want to not watch a comedy video or a comedy special because you don't like the jokes in it, don't watch it. But this whole concept of everybody's got to cancel everything that they disagree with. There's a lot of stuff I disagree with that if I go online and I state my opinion, I'm going to lose all my Instagram stuff. Like all the stuff I built is going to be gone with one joke if I say it wrong. And it's like, it's just so unbelievable that like, we live in this world of like tolerance and acceptance and love and all this stuff, unless your opinion is different.
Correct.
It's like, as long as you agree completely with what everybody's saying, then you fit into this mold. But you're like, I disagree with one thing you said. They're like, bigot. You're like, oh, you're insensitive. You're whatever. And
I want to comment on this.
I'm sure you do.
I
would love to.
I stopped following a lot of conservative, more right-leaning Instagram social medias because of that issue. After Trump didn't win re-election, they went full tilt. And I was like, oh, they're doing exactly what they were saying the Dems did, and now the Republicans are. I was like, oh, it's okay. This is what they do every 4 years. This is stupid. Why am I? I got sucked into it.
Yeah, I did too, and I'm very middle ground now. But go ahead.
So I've been known to be insensitive, and I'm fine.
No, I don't believe it.
Like I'm an asshole. So and I'm okay with that, and I can accept that, and I embrace it because look, not everybody's gonna be able to say what they want to say, and I don't really give if you don't like what I got to say, and I don't get into it with people on Facebook just because it becomes a war.
Right.
But I do occasionally post stuff that I know will incite people, and it just kind of
stir the pot.
Like, might as well, let's go out there and stir that pot a little bit. Let's just do it. So anyways, I threw a post out on Facebook a while ago, said something about just jokingly lighthearted, and this is where I think a lot of people go wrong, is they read into a post or something that you say depending on what kind of mood they're in, because you're not there in front of them to notice how you're being light and joking about it. So they read something, and if it fires off a neuron in their brain of hate or anger, or if they're triggered, automatically say it. So the post I said was something on the lines of, man, I can't believe how many people I follow who hold a fish in their profile picture.
Oh yeah.
Man, you guys can really fool some fish. Everybody who was holding a fish commented. And it was just like exactly my point.
Yeah.
Like, you got triggered because you're guilty of it. But if you had known me and you knew I was just joking around, it kind of proved my point. Like, I threw that out there as a joke because I was scrolling through my Facebook and I'm like, man, there's thousands of people on here holding fish.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you ain't got a family or a dog or a wife or anything? Okay, if you're a charter captain, I get it, great. But still, I follow charter captains who have pictures with their family, you know? But there's so many people on there holding a fish. I'm like, great, cool. You fooled that fish. Awesome. We've all done it before. Great. You are special. We'll make sure you put that in your Tinder profile, your Bumble pic, buddy. You'll get them all with that big fish you're holding there, buddy. So anyways.
It's not the size of the fish.
Exactly. Well, the fact that they like, you know what? This is the best picture I got. Me holding this snooker tarpon. This is the best one I got, ladies or everybody.
Is that like their way of saying, like, I'm a real catch?
Yeah,
like,
look at me.
If
the goes down, I can catch a fish to keep us alive. Awesome.
On someone else's boat.
But it's too big, so you got to throw it back.
Exactly.
We're on someone else's boat.
So I threw it out there, and I wound up having to delete it within like hours because, and the funny thing is all those people that negatively comment on them, bye. I just got rid of them.
Yeah.
So it was nice to kind of like, I threw a lure out there. I caught the people who were holding the fish, and then I let those people holding the fish go. Like, yeah, you fell for it. Bye, buddy. I don't even know who the heck you are. See ya.
Well, it's kind of funny too. Like I read through something. Like what I do is, like, when I post a video, the first 24 hours.
It was all men, by the way, too.
Oh yeah.
Men got very sensitive about that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. But like,
don't talk about a man's fish.
Yeah. The first 24 hours after I post a video, I'll go in there and I'll reply to a bunch of comments, because generally the first 24 hours is like my actual followers. It's the people that want to see my stuff. After 24 hours, it's like a no-fly zone. Like once the battles and stuff start getting in there, like I turn my notifications off for comments and all that. First of all, because it looks like a freaking roulette wheel just spinning, just whatever on my screen. But then second of all, just because sometimes I'll be sitting there looking at my phone and just hate will appear on my screen, and I'm like, geez, and I delete it or whatever. And it's like, but it's like whenever I like look at their profiles, it's kind of like it'll be somebody that'll have like, they'll follow like 800 people. They'll have 3 people following them. It's always like a selfie picture of like from a laptop from like down here, like a weird angle.
The best. Or
like when the East Manatee Preservation, Stacy and Mimi were here. Yeah. The one guy comments kind of like, everybody knows it gets it's cooler out in the country. Did she have some kind of revelation? And it's like, dude, she literally just said she had a revelation. Yeah. She grew up in town, and and then she said she moved out in the country. So she's literally saying, like, I had this revelation that I'm like, wow, I didn't know this. Yeah. And then he's like, everyone knows that, like whatever. And I'm like, dude, do you feel you feel better about yourself? Yeah. Like, whenever somebody that comments like hate like that, I'm like, how sad is your life? Yeah. So where you're sitting behind a screen and you're like, I'm just gonna go on my phone and hide behind a profile picture and spew hate, and then I'm gonna go to bed tonight feeling powerful because I insulted somebody on the internet. It's like, say that to my face at a gas station.
My post was not insulting. My post was not insulting. I literally put a laughy face emoji on it to make it kind of lighthearted. So I wanted to say that FLOrigins, we do not hate or discredit any outdoorsmen, any fishermen. I went and got my captain's license. I've been catching fish for 40 years, hunting deer and all that. So I wasn't making fun of the people who were holding the fish. I was just calling out like, wow,
it's just funny how many people do it.
It's surprising how many people are holding a fish in their profile picture. Yeah. Some of it I get, but it was just, I just wanted to say that FLOrigins supports outdoorsmen and a lot of conservation. We donate to NWTF of Florida, Ducks Unlimited Florida. We've donated CCA. We donated a lot of stuff to Florida Conservation. And I had even one guy commented, well, weren't you on the Florida Insider Fish Report selling your flags? It doesn't look very good. I'm like, it's because you're in a bad mood and you're reading it wrong. If you knew how this was coming off, you wouldn't be saying the hateful things, because I was just literally making a joke about it. But it really kind of lets you find out who
Well,
and the funny thing is, it's all people who commented that I have never really commented or liked anything before. So it's like they were waiting around the corner just for you to say something that they didn't like. And out pops the troll that, like, hey, I don't know who you are. Who are you following me?
These people are like, they just wait. They're like on their phones or their computers, and they just wait for something to be offended by. And they're like on the prowl, like just like creeping through the internet, just like looking for it. There it is. Like, and then they get in there and they leave a comment, and they're like, I feel better now. I did something for social justice, and I feel good about myself going to bed because I left that comment on that random video. And I've been guilty of it too. I mean, back in the day, I used to, especially like when I was drinking and I was just angry and I was just disappointed in life. If I'd go in the comments all the time and be like, whatever. And like, so I'm guilty of it too, you know, and it's like, so, but like once I got my life right and I'm actually like happy and like things are good, now I see a video I don't like, I'm like,
just scroll by.
Exactly.
Just scroll by.
No need. You're not going to change anybody's mind. You're not going to fix anything by commenting something negative on anything.
And it's the people who comment negative. It's a dead giveaway for what's going on in their life. The fact that you took the time to say something negative means you're not in a right mental or spiritual place to say that.
Like, I had friends message me. Like I posted a lot of stuff with Trump when he was going into the re-election in 2020, and I was posting a ton of stuff on social media.
How
people
dare you?
I know. Ride the red wave. Anyways, but I had people like reach out to me, like my friends, instead of commenting on myself and be like, you're brainwashed or you're crazy or you're too right-wing conservative or whatever, they'd be like, hey, why? They would actually reach out to me to figure out like, why are you so this or anti this or pro this? And then I would message them back and be like, oh yeah, it's because of this and this. And it's like, oh, we had a normal conversation. Or like I've talked to people recently now that have like, I was a little crazy back then. And now I'm a little more level-headed and I don't just go with what's
especially with that election, we definitely got caught up. Like you had to pick a team. Like the way culture was at that time, you either picked one or the other. And it really doesn't matter which side you're on. You got to admit that when you look back, you were definitely brainwashed. I was brainwashed. I don't mean you, but I mean like we as a people were brainwashed by one side or the other. And no matter what side you're on, the other side was just dead wrong. Like they were just idiots. They were stupid.
It still happens now.
It still does happen now. I mean,
it's still... you know what I find, and I'm going to call this out, it seems to be the little bit older generation. The 50 or older who have that mentality of like, Trump or Republican or F Trump, pro Democrat. It's the younger generation who has more of an open mindset. It can kind of see both sides.
Well, that's kind of because of what happened back
now. For all the boomers out there that are going to get mad at that, it's because I'm right.
If you're offended, it's because it hit a nerve.
It hit a nerve. You're triggered by what I just said because it's right.
When a nerve gets triggered, you have an opportunity. That opportunity is to be upset and want to cancel whatever was just said, or you can learn from it and be like, the reason I'm upset because of that comment was maybe it was right. Maybe they hit me in a certain way.
There's truth to it.
And that's kind of something I've learned over time too, is like, if there's something that really strikes a nerve with me, there's a reason for it. And is that reason valid? Is that reason something I'm actually passionate about? Or is it because I chose Team Trump or Team Biden? Is that why I'm offended? Is it my programming or is it a core belief that I have that I'm offended about? And that's kind of where I've gotten to the point where I've actually looked at stuff that makes me upset, and I'm like, am I actually upset about that, or is it just because I believe I'm one way or the other? And I've because of that particular election, I look back on it now like, man, we were all just wild. Like we were just passionately, blindly running with one side or the other, and now it's like I'm realizing like that's just not the way to go. Like we're causing more and more and more problems with this division over time. And it's like the people in power, they want us divided. Like, they always say, a nation united cannot fall. It's like, well, if we all unite together, then they're not going to have that power over us. And so obviously all this stuff is to keep us divided. And maybe I'm going a little bit on a rabbit trail here and getting a little Mr. Conspiracy Theory with this.
We're down the hole now.
But this is intentional. Like they're keeping us divided because they don't want us to come together. So they create all these different things. And like you even look at what's going on like in the LGBTQ community, like that whole thing now, they're throwing all these other types of groups in there. And like even that community is now getting upset that all this stuff's happening. And it's like they're even trying to divide what was once like the most united group of people was that community, and now they're even trying to divide that community. So if you can't see that this is intentional and like this is really what's going on, then I don't know what this has to do with hurricanes.
I know. It's to keep us distracted.
I just realized we're doing a hurricane podcast here. So
no, but yeah. Either our government or people in power like to keep people distracted.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors.
Exactly.
Look over here. Look over here. Like, don't look at what's going on over there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, hurricane. Look at we got some footage. We got some footage of.
So this is
little
a big
Debbie
storm.
wasn't so little wherever this was.
Little Debbie, yeah.
I think this is south, a little bit south Florida here.
Yeah, a little more south than that conversation just went.
Good. We're climbing out of the rabbit hole.
Well, look at that guy's house on stilts, man. He ain't having no problem.
Yeah.
That guy is smart as heck. After
planned.
like his house floated away three times. They built it up.
Now, where is this at?
Is this on Twitter? This is Tallahassee.
Oh, wow.
Tallahassee.
Oh, they're getting nailed right now.
Swanee, close to the Swanee River.
Wow.
Oh, man. Yeah, so it made landfall up in Gainesville, Tallahassee, like right where the panhandle curves. That's where the Debby, the eye of it really just
They
hit.
seem to get hit like more than any other part of Florida, I feel like.
The Big
So-
Bend area.
It's them and like the Fort Myers, Miami,
Yeah,
like that's
it's
kind of the
above us
tip,
and
and
below
then
us.
it hits the tip, curves around,
Yep.
goes back up into the elbow, or the armpit, whatever you want to call it, Florida's armpit.
There's people believe
offense.
where we're at, and like in the Tampa Bay area, everyone will obviously bring up the Indian Mounds thing, like theory of like whatever like keeps the eyes of the storm from our county. We never get a direct hit because of whatever. But it has to do with like science, how it's like the Tampa Bay, it like it's pushing out so much, I don't know, hot air or something.
Yeah, it
where
has
it's
something to
like,
do with the water
it
temperatures.
does push storms either south or north. Like it has to do with Tampa Bay. Like there's science behind it.
I feel like Paul Delgado explained it one time before a storm that made a lot of sense. Like
Uncle Paul.
Uncle
Paul.
Good old Uncle Paul.
Uncle Pappy.
Man, I remember.
What's Uncle Pappy got to say about hurricanes? And he's probably out in his freaking lake right now.
Oh, yeah.
Talking good, like whatever. If you're down, don't be down. Just swim in your lake.
We need to get Uncle Pappy on.
Yeah, Uncle
I know
Pappy,
it.
come on, man.
Yeah, if you're watching, come on down.
Or we could figure out how to do a podcast in your lake with you.
I think he's a woodworker. He does stuff like what I do,
cool.
but he makes like countertops and like epoxy. I don't know. I've seen something like he does a woodworking shop like what I got going on.
I know friends that make really cool, like they'll do color and like,
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Who wants to make us a custom flow? What am I trying to say? Who wants to make us a custom FloBro Show table? You know, make
One
us
of
a
them
sweet
epoxy
custom
tables
one
with like the blue river flowing.
We'll shout out your company, man.
Yeah.
Shoot, if you make us a sweet table, that'd be awesome. You can come on the show.
I guess we could probably give some people some useful information.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Here after all that, I don't even know what that conversation was. Obviously, I've been in my house a little bit too much the last couple of days. I think I put a little bit too much Red Bull in my coffee this morning. So let's get back on track here with this. What do you got pulled up here?
All right, so we're on floridadisaster.org. So, when there is a hurricane coming, there's resources out there that you can look up on the disaster supply kit checklist going into it. So instead of rush buying 16 cases of water and buying all this random stuff just to buy it because you think you're going to need it, you actually can just go on, try to, be level-headed, not like a crazy person, and just go through the checklist.
Like that lady I posted in that video yesterday.
Exactly. Just like, what? There's no more water bottles.
Well, it's funny too, because it's like people go nuts, and it's like, especially like people that move here, it's like their first hurricane. They don't know what to do. And they're talking to their neighbor that moved here from somewhere else, and their neighbors are freaking out. They're freaking out. The news is telling people to freak out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like,
everybody's freaking out, man.
We're not living in the 1920s. Like we don't live in a time where you got to stockpile for yourself. This isn't the apocalypse. You're not a doomsday prepper. It's a hurricane. Like we get hit by hurricanes all the time. We have systems in place. We have stuff that Florida does for hurricanes.
Right.
And then you got the Red Cross that comes through. You got we got a big church in our area that spent over $250,000 just on like food and water to bring down to Fort Myers and stuff after Ian.
Right.
So you're not alone. It's like if you don't have something like I didn't lose power during Ian at my house, but like I had friends that did in town. Mm-hmm. So like we had friends that would bring loads of laundry to our house, do laundry. Like there's people that will go out of their way to help each other. Yeah. Like we talked about in one of the last podcasts, I think it was the one with Mimi and Stacy. We talked about the unity after a storm.
Exactly.
Politics go out the window, and then people unite, and they're like, what can we do to help you out? And there's a big neighborly vibe that goes on after a storm that we have here, and that'll take care of you. So even if you don't have the water that you think you're going to need, or you don't have the ribeye steaks that you think you need for a hurricane.
Right.
There's a checklist of what you actually need for you and your family. You don't need to go nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. It pays to know your neighbors, to be friendly with your neighbors, and to really build a community before there's a disaster, so that when something happens, it's like, like the people closest to you have your back.
Yeah. And like what we do is we just don't trust the water that comes from our tap anyway.
Right.
So we just always have a decent amount of bottled water. Like it's something that it's hot in Florida. You're going to need water anyway.
Right.
Throughout the year, just if you want some extra water, buy some water while it's available. You don't need to go to Costco and load up 2 shopping carts full of stuff for 4 people for a week or 2.
Exactly.
It's like after the storm, we get power companies that come in from all over the country. We get all these people that come in. They bring extra fuel trucks, and all this stuff comes into Florida, and they're stationed and waiting. Like if you drive through any town in Florida before a storm, you'll see open fields that are just loaded with bucket trucks, ready to go, ready to go when that storm passes by. So we're not in the old Wild West. I mean, we're not fending for ourselves. We're not hunting off the land after a storm goes by.
Yeah. I think Matt the welder just made a video. They were sitting outside of his house.
Yeah. Those are the hardworking people that are ready to get things back in order. And it's just, like I said, I stupidly just went to Publix to get hot dog buns, not even really thinking about the fact that it was a grocery store during at the time a tropical storm, now a hurricane that's outside, like we mentioned before. We're filming this while there's a hurricane going on. So we can sit here in the middle of Hurricane Debby and calmly talk about what's going on. And that just kind of goes to show, like, we're as prepared as you need to be for a storm, but we're not freaking out. Like, I didn't go buy a bunch of dumb stuff.
Right.
I got 4 gallons of gas in my car, and I'm not worried about it. I'll get gas. They'll fill them back up. I'm not in line, stretching a quarter mile down the road, waiting to fill up my tank just in case. It's like, if the storm is so bad that you got to fill up 3 vehicles with gas before the storm comes through, then it's like, you're over preparing. Like if it's that bad, you're not gonna be able to drive anywhere.
Yeah. During when Hurricane Ian was coming, I spent a stupid amount of money on fuel because I filled up all of our vehicles. I filled up like 6 5-gallon things of gas because we had a generator. And then I filled up my RV, and I had to fill up my RV with premium. And it's like a freaking 35
the old daddy lack needs premium too. I know that feeling.
I racked up a pretty penny, and then we didn't need to. It was nice to have a RV in case the storm was going to be really bad, and when if it was going to directly hit us, then we'd be like, boop, everything's in the RV, it's ready to go, and then we just are going to drive like into the middle of the state, like we're kind of like.
You're in a different situation too. You got tractors, you got all this stuff on the farm that you need fuel for, so you're not just stockpiling all this fuel like a crazy person just because. No. Like I've seen some videos of people putting tarps in their trunk and filling up their trunk with gasoline, and like some of the video, plastic bags. You see videos of these people doing this wild stuff, and it's like you have a bomb in your trunk when you do stuff like that. It's just these people. The safety even goes out the window sometimes.
I think the best piece of advice to give people when you live in Florida is to not get things when a hurricane is coming, because everyone is trying to get the same thing. After a hurricane comes, make the list, go on here, see what list of the things you need, and get it throughout the year. Don't all try to get it at once because everyone else is trying to do it. So be mindful and prepared way in advance. Already have this stuff ready. Get a propane and gas generator. What?
Buy non-perishables instead of bread and meat and cheese.
Right. Don't wait. Like literally do it as soon as possible. Like have things in place way before a disaster strikes.
Mm-hmm. My suggestion, my tip would be, if you're going to do a hurricane party, because everybody always claims, Floridians party during hurricanes. Not everybody. I mean, like a small percentage of people do. And it's not a good idea to get up off of alcohol and have a tornado hit your area, or you're having a hurricane party. Maybe it's just you drinking beer with your buddy in the garage, but then you live in a flood zone, and then the water got worse than what you think it is, and now you're drunk and intoxicated and have to be rescued. So be mindful about where you're at before you decide to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you're in a flood zone, don't get hammered.
Pretty much waste 24 hours of your life with alcohol in your system, being belligerent or acting foolish.
Right.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's a storm is what it is. And like, and even though they look massive, like they look terrifying, like especially if you're not used to them and you're not from the area, and you see this giant swirling death ball coming at Florida. It's like most of that storm is not the storm itself. Like that, it is a storm, but the eye wall is what you really got to worry about. That few miles around the eye. So if you're not in the direct path of the eye, you're going to get like what a lot of people up the state got, like the actual peninsula part of Florida. Most of us just got 40, 50 mile an hour wind gusts here and there, and we got some rain, a lot of local flooding, things like that. But the whole storm isn't going to devastate the entire state. It's mainly that eye wall. It's the storm surge is the major killer. That's like the big deal, is that storm surge, depending on which way the wind's blowing. Just because the storm itself looks huge and terrifying doesn't mean it necessarily is. Like we had a bunch of friends during like Irma and Ian, like they a bunch of people jumped in their cars and they just, as soon as the storm got a name, they took off, they went to Orlando, and the storm missed us here and hit where they evacuated to. So it's like, if you got an evacuation plan ahead of time too, and you're not just freaking out and loading up your car and hitting the road, know where you're going, have a plan,
That's the biggest thing, is have a plan. Like, especially if you have really close friends or family in the same town or area, is before the storm even comes, have a plan. If you lose power, if you lose cell phone signal, if something happens and you need help, how are you going to contact who you need to contact? Yeah. So you need to like have that already planned out, or it's like, or if you need to evacuate or meet up somewhere, have a place and time. It's like, it's just, it's have a plan.
It's kind of like what Mimi said during with East Manatee Preservation. She mentioned that she lost power. She didn't have TV or anything in her house, but she had a friend in Colorado, I think she said. Telling her
where the storm
was. Her cell phone was still working, so she was able to get text messages of the radar and things like that showing her. So there's a lot of unique, creative ways you can still be informed without having to freak out. And it's like we were coming back. Like my wife and I went for her birthday up to Savannah, Georgia before Irma. Yeah. And when we left, the storm was kind of out and where this storm came from kind of. Yeah. And by the time we were headed back, it was coming right at Florida and like right where we live basically. And we're coming down into Florida. It's just us and like power trucks on the road. Like that was it. Like it was just us and a bunch of bucket trucks headed south. And we looked nuts because we're like, from I-10 all the way south, beyond south of I-4, parked, and they had the shoulders opened up as lanes too. So it was technically a 5-lane road. Nobody was moving. And we're driving back kind of like, man, where are we going to get gas? What are we going to do? And so we're headed south. So it's the craziest thing. This is where you can see logic goes out the window. All of the gas stations, as we're headed south on the right side, nobody was fueling up. Everybody was headed north and getting off to their right, and they were headed east to fill up. So those gas stations were crazy. They were packed with people. And it's like, if they would have just turned the other way off the highway, they could have got gas, gotten back on the road and parked again. Yeah. I'm not driving anywhere, but it's just kind of the funniest thing. You see what fear does and you see what panic does. Mm-hmm. And it even showed when we're just going a different direction on the same highway. You kind of see that no one thinks logically. That fear takes over. Mm-hmm. They go into fight or flight and they do these fear-based decisions.
Well, the media helps with that.
Media. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
The media really helps jack up
the fear factory.
Fear. Do you guys notice how the weathermen get really excited when something like this happens? Like just like, I'm gonna stay up for 5 days straight talking about this hurricane. Yeah,
Dennis Phillips, is hands down the best. Yeah, like
he's got suspenders rocking and everything.
He lives for this. I mean, it's not. He's really cool.
Yeah, I like
he's
him.
He's a person to follow.
I like him, and I like Paul Delgado too. So even if you're not from the Tampa Bay area, if you want good storm information, Fox 13's Paul Delgado, and who's Dennis Phillips is
Channel 10,
CBS.
Yeah.
So those are two local guys in the Tampa Bay area, but during the storm, they obviously do statewide coverage or whatever, but they have logic and they will explain things in a calm way. Like you could tell by the time the hurricane gets there, especially with Paul Delgado, you can see the bags under his eyes. He's like, listen guys, don't do this. Here's all you got to do. And like his professionalism kind of goes out the window a little bit. And he's just kind of like, don't be stupid. Just, this is what you need to buy. Like, and it's refreshing to see somebody that's just like, this is what you got to do. This is all you got to do. And he even said, if you haven't evacuated by now, it's too late. Stay where you're at. Yeah. He told people that
it's
on a live broadcast.
It's going to be more dangerous for you to leave now than it would be to wait out the storm.
Yeah, he's like, if you're not already on the road and you're not already somewhere, it's too late. Go home, ride the storm out. And I was like, that was a very unique information to hear from a broadcaster.
Yeah, Dennis Phillips says, I think his first tip is when a hurricane is coming is don't freak out.
Yeah.
It's like first tip, don't freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, just kind of get to know the checklist, get to know what you need. Like we talked about before, old school trick, just fill up the tub.
If you're going to travel and you're with pets, you got to make sure that wherever you're going to, say it's a hotel out of state, can accommodate pets. You make sure you got all their stuff.
Yeah, so you don't end up stuck with a pet and all that kind of stuff too. With
sleeping in your car at a rest area up in North Georgia because you didn't plan ahead on finding a place to stay that allows pets.
Well, simple stuff too. You can buy one of them camping burners, propane with a little tiny, propane. Like little green cans. Yeah. Buy one of those for $30 or whatever. Yeah. Fill your bathtub with water, and even if you lose power, you lose gas to your house, you lose water. Yeah. You got quite a few gallons of water in your tub. You boil off. And you filled up the tub before the storm, so it's not contaminated with anything more than what's already in the water. I guess you could say,
just clean your tub.
Really clean your tub really good.
Don't clean it with bleach and then fill it with water.
Make sure you clean it with like dish soap and make sure all the suds are rinsed out. Like clean it like you're cleaning your dishes. Yeah. And prepare it for the water, and then that's all you really. I mean, you got a couple cases of water. You got your bathtub full.
Trash cans too. You go to like Ace or Lowe's or Home Depot and get like brand new trash cans. Yeah, and you can stick those inside. You don't have to wash. Like we should wash them, but they're not like used with trash yet. Yeah, and you could fill that with water too.
Yeah,
and then if you got a bunch of water bottles, just stick them in your freezer. For frozen water. Yeah, you can. If the power goes out, you still. And honestly, if your power goes out, keeping your refrigerator and your freezer closed as much as possible is obviously going to keep the food in there, right? As cold as possible for longer.
I recommend for like generators, if you don't got like a crap ton of money that has like your whole house on a backup generator or like solar generators and stuff, I would recommend getting like two different types of generators. One is one that runs on propane or propane and gas, like fuel. So you have like both and or. And then the other thing is to get a pretty beefy like battery that you can have inside that you either can charge from a wall outlet or use solar to charge it. So then you have something inside. You don't have to run a power cable from the outside generator in. You can already have a battery backup.
And don't ever run your generator inside the house
or
inside your garage.
No, never in an enclosed space.
A lot of people will put them inside their garages, and then that carbon monoxide will go in, and they'll fall asleep and never wake up because of it. And you hear that on the news after every storm. There's families that have died because they thought putting it in the garage, and then at the end of the night they close the door. They don't think about the generator being running in there, filling their garage with exhaust, and so simple stuff like that. But
you would think that would be common sense, but
I said, common sense flies out the window.
Storm,
people are freaking.
You're like anxious, and you don't know what's going on, and you want to like be I
got to save this $500 worth of food I just bought 3 days ago.
And another thing that one of my old bosses did that was a really good idea is he bought a gas powered generator that was capable of running a refrigerator and a couple other things, but a refrigerator, and he bought a window AC unit.
Yes,
and he puts it in the master bedroom. So when a storm goes by, if they lose power, he just runs his refrigerator and a window AC off one generator. Exactly. And that way he's got one cool room to sleep in, and he's got his refrigerator full of food on one generator. And he didn't even have that big of a generator. Yeah. So it's like his lights and stuff. Obviously, he's not going to have lights, but you get flashlights, or your phone has lights.
Burn them candles you've been hanging on to.
Yeah.
Remember, my mom used to have those hurricane lamps.
Hurricane lamp.
It was like it would have oil in it, and it would have this little wick you would twist, and it was a flat wick. My grandmother had one too.
That's ancient.
Oh yeah,
that's wild.
I think they still have it. It was like a green glass, and I think there was like one that was like red, maybe.
Yeah, they make like an amber colored one.
Yeah, hurricane lamps.
One thing I do too is like what we did for the last couple storms is we turned the AC down gradually. Yes. Before the storm.
Before you lose power. So
we were inside. Cold. We were inside the house in hoodies and jeans and like we were freezing out the house. But you bump it down. I think it's like 1 degree per hour or something like that. If you max it out, I mean, you could freeze over your lines on your AC or whatever. Yeah. A lot of AC guys will tell you not to crank it down like that. But like what we did is like as the temperature hit, like if we set it to 72, it hit 72. We bump it down to 71, and we. As the storms come, and that way at least you got a few hours. If you lose power at the beginning of the night, you could sleep in the AC until you figure out what to do the next day. And so that's for people that can't afford a generator or something like that. You can get at least a good 24 hours of a decently cool house if you think about just simple stuff like that too.
And they do like a bunch of the tool manufacturers, they do make really good fans that run off of like an 18-volt little battery for like an electric drill. Those work great too.
Yeah, like Milwaukee or DeWalt or anything. All those brands will sell those things. So if you got a DeWalt drill already, just go buy a fan.
And the thing is, all this stuff costs money, right? Like the generators are like they're hundreds or thousands of dollars. And so you don't want to have to buy those when a hurricane is coming because you're like, crap, I'm going to spend all my money like buying all this stuff. But it's like, no, throughout the year, save some money, buy it throughout the year. If there's something on sale, like have the list.
You know, you can learn lessons as they go too. You know, things you got wrong on one storm, you try again the next. And I'm 39 years old. I've been here my whole life, and I don't even blink twice when a storm's coming. Even if it's a Cat 3, Cat 4, I'm like, well, it's going to be rough. But I just know if I do these certain steps, I do these certain things, I'm going to be okay. And I've never once gone out and panic bought. I've never bought more than what I needed. You know, not that filling up your bathtub's living off the land, but it's a resource that you have. Yeah. That you don't need to rush off to the store and hoard water and all that. And then like I was talking to somebody at Publix, and like they were saying that like after these storms go by, all these people that bought 18 cases of water and they bought like, you know, $150 worth of steak and all this stuff, they'll come back after the storm and they'll try to return it all. And it's like, you know, that's just a crazy thing. You hoard for yourself selfishly. And then when the storm passes, you're like, well, I'm going to return it and get my money back. So it's like almost like a double selfish kind of behavior. Yeah. At least if you buy all that stuff, just use it. Keep it. Don't put that burden back on the store or the employees or whatever. And it's like a lot, and like all the meats and the cheeses and stuff like that. If you return it, they can't put it back out. Yeah. So you're costing that store money by freaking out and trying to hoard for yourself. So it's
one thing I've learned throughout the years is when a hurricane hits an area, it affects different areas drastically different. And so there's some people like that will literally like lose their roof on their house, and 5 miles down the road, the people don't even lose power, or even a mile down the road, they don't lose power. And other people, like a whole tree will fall on their house. Yeah. And then, so there's like, if you're in a place where nothing really bad happened, you still have power, you still, you know, nothing really bad happened on your property, and you have the means of like a chainsaw or a truck or whatever, like, go help people. Because even if nothing happened to your house, there's someone really close to you that something did happen. And, you know, don't just say like, oh, I'm good. It's like, we're probably all good if I'm good. It's like, don't be selfish and think just because something bad didn't happen to your property doesn't mean it didn't happen to someone else's. And well,
that's what, after Ian went through, my buddy that I was talking about that came over and did some laundry and stuff, they had a bunch of trees fall down on their property, and I drove over there and we spent hours on that chainsaw. Yeah. And we got the yard cleared up. We dragged it all by the road, and Waste Management or whatever the local waste company is, they have those claw trucks, and they bring them in from all over the place too, and they don't charge you that $150 or whatever it is for a pickup, depending on where you're at, but they come through and they'll just clean up whatever debris you put out by the road. It might take a month for them to come get it, but you just drag all your tree trimmings out to the road, they'll come by with a claw truck, they'll pick it up. There's resources for all this stuff, and it's like, you know, you don't have to get nuts, you don't have to get crazy, you know. They're scary, don't get me wrong. You know, storms can be real scary. You hear that wind howling, you hear your roof creaking and making noise you've never heard a house make before. I mean, there's some hitting your windows. Yeah. You like, you hear that rain hitting a window that you've never heard before because it's flying straight sideways, and tree leaves are hitting your window and it sounds like a hailstorm, and it could be, you know, pretty scary even for somebody that's born and raised here. But at that point, it's too late. Kind of like what Paul Delgado said, you're in your house, stay in your house. Like, even if like your front bedroom loses its roof, but your master bedroom still has a roof, stay in your house. Oh yeah. Don't go try and get into your car and drive out in that storm and try to get away from your house that has a roof missing. And, you know, because same thing, especially at night, you have no idea how deep the water is. You don't know where the road's at because you don't have sunshine lighting up the stripes below the water. Like, you go out in a hurricane, you drive into this water, you don't know how deep it is, your car stalls out. Now you're in the middle of a flood, possibly in a river like by my house where the water's flowing over the road. Right. You're in a stalled car. You don't want to get out of your car because it's a hurricane. Yeah. Next thing you know, that river keeps rising. Now you're in a stalled out car in the middle of a storm because you decided you want to try to leave your house. And it's just fear will not get you anywhere in a situation like a hurricane. You got to think as logically as you can. And as hard as that is for some people, you gotta use your logic and think what's best for me, and, you know, run to the room that's still safe or whatever.
Did you, just bringing up a story real quick with Hurricane Ian, did you guys hear the stories with the people down Fort Myers or Naples where the people stay in their homes? They definitely should have left because it's like usually the
flood zone, and
it's a flood zone. Usually the eye of hurricanes hit Fort Myers. Fort Myers and above Tampa. But some people are like, no, we're good. But did you hear about people would stay in their house and their houses started flooding and they couldn't get out?
They go up into their attic.
They would go into their attic and they just couldn't get out. So it's like, if you're in a place like that and your whole house is boarded up except for like one entrance, like, you need to have an escape plan. Yeah. Like, don't like go into your attic. It's like, it's so sad.
The reality of it is the storm's a wicked storm. People die in these storms. Yes. So as many jokes as I make in my videos and all this kind of stuff, that's the reality of it all. Is we will all do whatever we can, you know, whether you like my jokes, you don't like my jokes, whether you like other people's jokes, if you don't find humor in storms, if you find, like, because a lot of the Florida people, we get all, you know, excited.
Bring
and
it on.
Like, yeah, bring it, whatever.
Little Debbie.
And maybe that's just us getting
like
pumped
Lieutenant
up.
Dan.
It's like the fighters before a fight getting all psyched up. They got that music playing and all that. I think that's more of what the Florida man does, is kind of get pumped up for the storm. And obviously, it's like some people do just get wild and they don't think anything about safety. But generally speaking, most Florida man people you see putting out these videos are same thing. They're like, okay, well, this is what I'm putting out there. But after the storm comes, we're all going to come together. We're going to help out, do what we need to do. And, you know, so it's...
A real Florida man will stay cool, calm, and collective. You know, it's usually the transplants or the people who haven't been here long enough, or they're usually at the grocery stores impulse buying because they just watched Fox News for 8 hours straight prior to the storm even being down there. Oh my God, we got to start doing something.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like we've already got all our stuff. I'm sure you do too. Batteries. We already know where everything is at. At least it's not our first
rodeo. A lot of the stuff we've had for months or even years.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of like, we know where the flashlights are. We know where the fire extinguishers are. I check my fire alarms regularly. Like I got carbon monoxide detectors. I got all the stuff that you should have anyway. I mean, if nothing else, it gets to be 100 degrees with a feels like temperature up in like the 118s and stuff during the summer. So you're going to need water anyway.
Yeah.
So buy it all year if you want water. I mean,
get a kayak just in case.
Get yourself a kayak.
In case your car gets
a
flooded.
couple of jet skis.
Oh, jet skis. Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, man.
Well, I did see a few videos of some people driving down the road pulling somebody on a surfboard.
Oh yeah,
skimboard, wakeboard.
Rachel's brother and friend, they would pull each other in kayaks behind a tractor on the farm.
Yeah.
When it would flood, like in the water. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did that out in Mayaka too.
Yeah, that's fun.
Actually, we pulled our boat down the road when there was no water. We just pulled it down a dirt road.
Just an old John boat.
It was, it was a flat boat. We had our dirt bike chest protectors and our helmets on.
Go.
And my buddy had a Ford Ranger, and we just put a rope on the trailer hitch, and he had no regard for us.
Right.
He'd turn around corners, and his truck would make it around the corner, but then that boat just
slid out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was. I can't believe.
That's fun.
Maybe that's why hurricanes don't really scare me, because I shouldn't be alive with the stuff we did out there, man. Like, maybe that's it. But
well, Debbie does Florida. She's doing Florida right now. She's got Georgia and South Carolina on her mind next.
Yep.
And I think a little bit of North Carolina, I'm sure too.
Yeah,
they're gonna that from what they said, that storm is gonna sit like in Charleston for like a couple days. It's going to slow down and just because half of the storm will be in the Atlantic and half will be on land.
So getting recharged.
So it's just going to sit there and turn until it gets pushed farther north. So, I mean, you're watching the news and you're seeing how flooding is bad in South Florida, but you got to think North Florida, Georgia, South Carolina is going to probably get it worse.
Yep.
Yeah, the stuff we're talking about doesn't just apply to Florida. I mean, it's anybody that gets hit by hurricanes. It's like, they can all relate to the same thing. We all go through the same stuff before and after storms, and I
mean, you got to think a lot of these storms that hit us or Texas, Louisiana, they usually wind up devastating like Puerto Rico before they even get here.
Yep.
So they're going across those little islands and just annihilating them. Now, some of them have mountains on it, so it kind of helps the wind shear and knocks them down in size if it can, like Cuba. But Dominican Republic, Haiti, and stuff like that. But man, those Caribbean islands down there usually get annihilated.
Yeah, you wonder how the Bahamas even exist anymore.
Exactly.
Like,
so we're sitting here talking about first world problems.
Right.
Yeah.
So we really need to take into consideration that you've got it pretty good compared to those places down there who just get the brunt of it right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Every year.
Yep. Even the ones that miss us plow right over them every time. They've already been hit like 3 times this year down below us, so it's this is the first one that's hit in Florida, but I mean, there's already been a couple that have trekked below and plowed right over those places, and so.
Well, have fun, stay safe. That's a wrap.
Peace. This episode of the FloBro Show is brought to you by FLOrigins, Florida's most authentic lifestyle brand. Celebrate the rich culture and vibrant spirit of Florida with FLOrigins' high-quality apparel, handcrafted art, and unique accessories. Visit FLOrigins.com and use code FLOBRO, FLOBRO, for an exclusive discount. You can find the links to the FLOrigins gear we are wearing and the art on the studio wall in the description box below.